Hello everyone, welcome back. In this lesson, we will add a navigation bar to our web application. Now you see I have the backend running, and if we just reload the web application we have developed in the last lesson, you can see the pictures has been loaded like this. Okay, so that's to say our front end is talking to the backend correctly. Now let's come back to our editor, text editor, and let's just open our app folder and right click on the components folder and create a new file. And I'm gonna just paste in some code and save it as navbar.component.ts. So again, we have the import part to import a component, and we have the selector and external template URL. And here we are having one parameter or variable defined, and it's called my local storage. So what is HTML local storage? So with local storage, web applications can store data locally within the user's browser. Before HTML5, application data have to be stored in cookies, included in every server request. But local storage is more secure, and large amounts of data can be stored locally without affecting website performance. So I'm not gonna go into detail of those. So basically, the local storage is a storage environment, say at least 5 megabytes, provided by web browser or HTML5, and we're gonna use that to store some information like the username and specifically the JWT token we'll be talking about later. So that's why we define a local storage here. And next, I am gonna right click on a components folder, create a new file. So as you can see, this is HTML content. So we're gonna name this one as you can guess, navbar.component.html. Okay. So basically, if we see this UI, something like a UI stuff for the class and division. So basically, that's the elements from semantic UI. But there's one more thing I want to point out here. We have this router link and the router link active. So those are the comments, those are the content from Angular 2. And also this click is from Angular 2 as well. So basically, we are defining the router element here. Specifically, we will have the image, which is the logo, and the lagoon, which is the title, and some buttons in the navigation bar, home, my own register, and login. They're pointing to the components or paths that we'll be adding later for navigation. Okay, so now we have the navigation bar added. We're gonna hook it up to our application, right? How are we gonna do that? Take a look at this diagram. This is the front end part, right? So this navigation bar basically residing in this level. So we want it to be like a head or something, and whatever content here is gonna switch, right? But navigation bar is always there. So we want to put this navigation bar in the very upper level on the module. Okay, so this is the way how we design this single page app. So in that case, let's just come back to our editor, and we're gonna modify the app.component.html. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna put navbar here. Okay, but this is not gonna work. Why? Because we haven't defined the app.module.ts yet. So whenever you add a new module or service, remember you need to define here. So we're gonna add the navbar module from components navbar.components. And remember, we need to define that in the declaration as well. Okay, so once you save it, you should be able to come back and see the changes. There we go, we have our navigation bar displayed, but we don't have the content. That's because in this HTML, the main app.component HTML, I deleted the home part, right? We need the home part to bootstrap the content for whatever content, whatever module that is built on home module. Okay, so we need to save that, and we need to come back to our web page. There we go. We have navigation bar, and we have our photo and side panel as well. So that's good. But before we actually continue on the next lesson, I would like to add the routing function into it. Okay, so right now you can see we have the navigation bar and we have the home component, but we can basically replace this home component with a Angular 2 default called router outlet. So what this does is that we're gonna replace this common content with the router functionality. That is to say, when we route to a specific component, you will replace this part and display. Okay? And in Angular 2 latest routing, which has changed over the previous one, we are specifying the routing configuration into one file. So we're gonna create a new file under this application, I mean the app folder, and we're gonna define that as app.routing.ts. Okay, let me trim it a little bit. So what this does is basically we are importing module providers and some routing modules from the Angular core and router library. And then we import the home component as well. Why we need that? Because within this context, we are defining the routing path, okay? So we have this empty path, which is the default path. And this will be redirected to a /home path, okay? And I want this path matched before. Where does this /home come from? It's coming from here. So that is to say, whenever you type in the /home on the context path, you will be pointing to this home component. And then the last statement, we basically exporting this routing module to our application. Okay. Now let's just refresh what we have done. So first we have an entry point from the app, the component.ts, right? Which is pointing to a app.component.html file, which is here. And within this HTML, we have two modules. Okay, one is this navigation bar, one is the other stuff. And the other stuff is basically represented by this router outlet tag. Okay, so what this router outlet tag display depends on which path we choose. And how do we define those path mappings? That is defined in this app.routing.ts file. Okay, so for right now, we only have one component defined for the path. That is the home path. And also we define the default path, which will be redirected to the home path. So in this case, if we just come back to our application, web application, it looks like it has something wrong. Let's go take a look. Okay, this router outlet is not recognized. So when you usually see that happens, that is to say we have our app.module and not something not defined. Okay. Specifically, we need to import the routing module from app.routing.ts file we have created. Okay, so we're gonna define that as a module. Because it's a specific, special module, we're gonna put it as import here. So once we have saved that, let's come back to our web page. There we go. We have our page displayed correctly. So you can see if we delete this home path, just default path, it will be redirected to home. Okay, same effects like click on this two buttons. All right, so that's pretty much for this lesson. We will continue in the next one. Bye.